I've been using my 5D Mark IV now since 2017 on probably hundreds of different projects. Sounds so smug saying that. It's traveled with me all over the world, and I actually use this camera alongside the 5D Mark III to help build my corporate creative business. And for a camera that's over 5 years old, it's still going pretty strong. But should you consider getting one? Well, today we outline 5 reasons why you should, and also 5 reasons why you probably shouldn't invest in a 5D Mark IV in 2022. So let's kick off with our 5 reasons why you should consider getting a 5D Mark IV in 2022. And first on our list is that it is a photography beast. Sporting a 30.4 megapixel full frame sensor, it works very well in low light conditions as well as at higher ISO values. This camera is still used by working professionals the world over, and it's not difficult to see why. Paired with Canon's own L series lenses, it really does give you an incredible picture quality. Let's just keep that sensor safe. While on the topic of lenses, our second pro point is the available lens selection. Canon offers such a large catalogue of choice when it comes to its EF series of lenses for all occasions, scenarios, and budgets. As just mentioned, I'm particularly partial to the L series of Canon glass, which simply produces incredible images. And a little bit of a double-edged sword here is that as creatives move away from the EF mount cameras and they purchase the RF stuff, it's becoming more and more likely that you can grab some older EF lenses that still work incredibly well at much reduced prices for your 5D Mark IV. Oh, this is the EFS. EFS doesn't work. As noted earlier, many professionals are still using the 5D Mark IV for all of their paid client work, and a main reason for this is our third point, and that is the dual card slots. There's nothing quite like having the feeling of fear when you're shooting for a client project and worried that your SD card will fail or corrupt. And actually, only having one card slot is probably one of the biggest gripes that I've heard from professionals using the Canon EOS R, which is probably the reason why Canon added dual card slots to the R6, R5, and more recently, R3 cameras. Fortunately, this is not a worry for creatives using the 5D Mark IV. Peace of mind for photographers that want to ensure that they have those priceless memories backed up as they shoot. While we're talking about dual card slots, let's also talk about dual pixel autofocus, or DPAF, and this is our 4th pro point. Now, DPAF is probably old news in 2022, but essentially it's an advanced autofocusing system, or when it was released, it was an advanced focusing system. But the older lineup of Canon full-frame DSLRs like the 6D, the 5D Mark II, and 3 did not have this functionality, meaning that creating videos required a lot of work, a lot of manual focus, trial and error. Introducing DPAF into the 5D Mark IV was an amazing step up. Not only did you have this full frame camera, but you had the ability to film and lock onto a person's face or a moving subject, and doing things like vlogging or talking heads videos like this suddenly became really easy with the 5D Mark IV without having to mess around with manual settings or having several trial shots to get things in focus. A lot of more modern cameras have this functionality as standard, and Canon's face and eye tracking AF is better than ever, but the early DPAF on the 5D Mark IV still works incredibly well and deserves consideration when weighing up the pros and the cons of this camera today. The touchscreen, which is a little bit messy, let me just quickly clean that up. The touchscreen is our 5th pro point. Now, this might be a standard feature in many cameras today, but again, for me, coming from the very much button-oriented world of the 6D and the 5D Mark III, this was a major plus. Using the touchscreen in conjunction with the dual pixel autofocus means immediate focus on your subject of interest, and this was one of the pieces of tech in the 5D Mark IV that really helped me a lot when it came to running and gunning at corporate events. So those are my 5 pro points. Let's discuss the 5 cons or negative points to consider. And this is a great place to mention that if you haven't done so already, go and add yourself to the KaiCreative Facebook and Instagram accounts to stay up to date with all of our creative happenings. And our first negative point is the weight. The 5D Mark IV is a tank of a camera, but man, is it heavy. Weighing in at a mighty 890 grams without a lens. And I can tell you from experience that walking around with a 5D Mark IV and a 70 to 200mm L lens combo slung around your neck can be a pretty taxing experience even for short periods of time. So something to definitely think about when choosing your next camera purchase. Our next gripe about the 5D Mark IV is the cropped 4K video. It was such an awesome revelation to hear that the 5D Mark IV would have a 4K filming option at 24 frames per second, but then it was a major letdown to hear that it came with a crop of 1.74. So initially I didn't use the 4K option because of that crop, and eventually I worked around that issue by using a 16 to 35mm L lens and thought that it was okay. But after using the 4K options on the Canon R5 and R6 cameras, I really appreciate how bad that crop actually is. And I would go so far to say that if you're looking for a 4K camera, you might want to skip out on the 5D Mark IV. Another letdown and our third negative point is the 8-bit CLog, which you have to pay to get installed on your 5D Mark IV. Now, if you don't know what CLog is, very quickly, it's a gamma setting to maximize dynamic range, minimizing the loss of detail in the darkest and brightest parts of your image and making it really useful for color grading in post-production. And after using 8-bit CLog on the 5D Mark IV quite extensively, and also comparing it to the CLog of the R series cameras, it is quite mushy. And even if you get your exposure spot on, it doesn't always color grade as well as the newer R series. And I know a lot of these negatives are coming from comparing the newer cameras to the 5D Mark IV, but that's what makes these points negative when there is better tech out there to compare them to. Point 4 is the fact that the screen is fixed. It's a non-articulating, non-rotating, non-moving screen. And this is a strong gripe that many video producers have against this camera, but also for photographers, when you have a low or difficult angle that you want to shoot at, you can't always get the shot that you want with a fixed screen. And Canon have realized that this is quite an essential feature as they have added it to their newer R series cameras. Our fifth and final con for the 5D Mark IV is that it is old technology. Not just the body, but the DSLR tech itself. And although many of us in the YouTube camera review world have prophesied this for a while, Canon themselves have now declared that they will no longer be creating any flagship DSLRs and will concentrate on their mirrorless lineup. So if the big brands are moving away from the technology, the question you need to ask yourself is, should you be investing in that tech? So should you be investing in that tech? Well, that's a good question. Yes and no. It depends on what you're looking to do with said camera. For photography, it is still incredible. I know many who are still using it regularly for paid client photography work, but for video, even though I used it extensively and it helped get my video production business off the ground, I say that it definitely is overshadowed by the newer competition when it comes to things like 4K video, better CLog, higher shooting frame rates, and general video quality. So yes, in terms of technology, the 5D Mark IV is quite old. Its limitations are quite evident when compared to newer camera bodies, but what can't be denied is that it is robust. It's proven itself in the test of time. It's versatile for both photography and filmmaking, and no doubt will continue to serve purpose for established and up-and-coming photographers and filmmakers in the years to come. And if you are considering getting a 5D Mark IV, another thing that might persuade you nowadays is getting a second-hand body online. On places like Amazon and eBay, you can pick up a unit for around £1,300 to £1,500. That's $1,500 to $2,000 second-hand. The official Canon store is actually still selling them at around $2,700 or $2,800 roughly, and that might still be a huge commitment for the casual photographer or part-time filmmaker. But like I've said before, if you're getting regular freelance jobs or work as a professional, then it definitely pays for itself in no time at all. So those are my thoughts on using the 5D Mark IV in 2022, but I'm also interested in knowing your thoughts and experiences with this legendary camera, so do write those down in the comment section below. Also, if you found today's video useful, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that little bell for notifications. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. All that I've got left to say is stay creative, stay safe, imagine, implement, and inspire. And I will see you next time on KaiCreative.